So Section 9 of the Constitution, I'm going to relate it to Section 6 of the Employment Equity Act, which speaks to discrimination that is not permissible in the workplace, basically. And that is sex, gender, race, and there's more, which is also listed in Section 9, as you've mentioned. In the cases that I've come across, the one form of discrimination that I have come across relates to age. And while speaking to you, there's one case that does come to mind where an employee was a grown man, but he was not at a retirement age, and you'd find that the employer would have meetings just to convince them to resign or take early retirement, and they were not ready to do that. And they were subsequently dismissed for something not related to the discussion, to those discussions. But when you look at the meetings and when you look at the discussions and the correspondences, you can clearly see that the issue of age was at play. So we contested that matter, and it was actually an unfair discrimination dispute based on age. So age is one of the factors that I've come across predominantly.
It's also something that I've noticed recently is that some employers doesn't want to employ people close to the retirement age. So if the person is like 60 or 59, then they have doubts like this person is going to work a couple of years and then it's pension. Is that a form of discrimination based on?
Definitely, I'd say if that's a reason, that's the reason that a person is not employed if they were applying for a job, then that is a form of unfair discrimination, because Section 6 stipulates that we cannot discriminate based on age, race, sex, etc., etc. So definitely yes.
Because there is some people who take early retirement and then wants to get into the labor again, and then they have like 5 or 6 years left, and then but people say, but
yeah,
you're too old. We'll invest. We will have a much bigger investment on a younger person.
And you know what the problem is with that statement that you are too old? What is not considered is the experience that you come with into the labor market, and your ability to pass on that experience to the younger people that you'll meet in that employment. So I think it's short-sighted to say it's unfair discrimination, and definitely it's short-sighted to say that a person is too old. And especially if the person is qualified and has the necessary experience to do the work. As employers, I think you will have to think about the value that they will add to you, to the employment relationship, or to the work that they will be doing. And that's something that people don't think about.
So here's my question then. If there is discrimination based on age,
yes,
can you discriminate against the person when they're older than 65, the retirement issue, or does that still count for discrimination against race?
No, it doesn't, because they are retired already, so it would ordinarily not count.
Oh, okay. So up until 65. So you can discriminate after 65.
No, it's not It's not unfair discrimination. You need to also note that there's a difference between unfair discrimination and discrimination. So if it's discrimination that is not unfair, it's acceptable. An example that I'll make is when one employer is given a vehicle and the other one is not given a vehicle because of the type of work that these two employers do. You can't say that there's discrimination because one is given a vehicle and one is not, because you look at the job that they do. Is it necessary for the other one to get a vehicle? Not. So in the issue of age, it cannot be, if you are over the retirement age, it can't be unfair discrimination because you're already retired.
So ladies and gentlemen, this is an important distinction. So there's unfair discrimination and there's discrimination. So in the workplace, there can be discriminated. There is discrimination, and it's based on the job, the type of job that you're doing. And in my particular case, if you're older than 65, you can be discriminated against because the retirement age is 65, legally in South Africa. Am I right?
You're correct. But I just want to say that you need to distinguish between discrimination and unfair. If it's unfair, it's unwarranted, then it's not acceptable.
So unfair then would be 64, unfair discrimination, and discrimination would be 66.
Say that again.
So I just want to, for someone who's watching this,
Yes.
as an employer, and they have someone who is 64 that is applying for a job.
Yes.
And then they reject that person based on age. That's unfair discrimination.
Yes.
But if the same employee was 66 and they then reject that person, then it's regarded as discrimination.
It is discrimination based on age, but it's not unfair discrimination.
So the only thing that counts in the South African labor law is unfair discrimination.
Definitely. Underline unfair.
Here we go.